Greetings, everyone. I'm going to start out the video and provide you with a quote from Bhagavad Gita. It's the central lesson. It says the spiritual man need not be a recluse. That union with the divine life may be achieved and maintained in the midst of worldly affairs. The obstacle is that union lie not outside of us, but within us. So our connection with God must begin within. Now, it's not hard for our people to see how a lot of work have gone into hundreds of years to try to convince you that you are unworthy or inferior. And I'm here to debunk some arguments, and I'm not doing so. I have no intention of getting into any debate with anybody who have alternative views. If you want to share your thoughts here, you can do so, and I appreciate that. Okay? Now, when we think of the picture of the Christian God, we see before us in many of our homes in the Caribbean or in Africa the picture of a white God. And when we think of the devil, who we are told opposes God or anything godly, we see the devil being portrayed as a black person. So just imagine why our people in the Caribbean or in the diaspora, wherever we are in the world, often look at each other and treat each other that way, because you are seeing that person as someone who does not have God abiding within them, and they're the devil. And therefore you're going to, if you say you're the child of God, you're going to be trying to eliminate the devil, which is in the image of yourself based on what they teach you. Now, in the military, or if you look at target practices, what color is the board that they use to practice? Why do African people dislike themselves so much? And I'm going to say here that I have no intention of blaming anyone else or, holding anyone accountable for how we are, because we have agency and we can choose to change our mind about the things that we see that cast us in a very negative light. Every time you see God as something that is different from you, you're not seeing that God in your brother or yourself. When you look at the African, you despise the Asians, for example. You do not acknowledge our brothers in the struggle, the ones who showed our ancestors how to escape bondage. We are so ungrateful. And what we choose to do is see our people as the devil and as such demonize them. And we will join everybody else to do that. Someone else look like God and your people look like Satan. There are youths growing up with the idea that we are from traitors who sold us into captivity. And, that is history telling us this thing. And I have used those same language because that's what I was taught. But we have to recalibrate these things in our mind. We serve false God and we're doing the works of the devil when we honor our ancestors. That's what we're told. We are told that our ancestors were worshiping false gods. We proudly express our deep religious thoughts and ways of declaring and pleading the blood of this or that. And we try to insult people whose eyes are wide open. Even as you act the fool and you remain a slave, you are so blinded that you think you can come and argue with somebody who is enlightened or is on the path to enlightenment. Let me remind you, when the Creator made the world, there was no black, white, there was no Chinese, there was no Indian, there was no Viking. These names are given by people because they associate to different landmass. The creative nature made human beings, like animals, we vary in size, in color, etc. Love rests in diversity and beauty. People try to alter this truth and tell you something by putting people in categories, labeling people because of the limit in their mind or their own prejudice. So if a sacred text tell you that you're created in the image and likeness of God, then your God must look like you. And if you're told that you are given a God that does not look like you, you have no choice but to reject that God. So at the dawn of time, throughout the different continents, history clearly shows that the African was the first people. It's at the River Nile where humanity begins. Now, UNESCO, Volume 2, Chapter 1, Professor Leakey concludes that 150,000 years ago, identical beings to the Africans lived in areas of the Great Lakes, at the foothill of the mountain of the moon, at the source of the Nile in the land of the gods. And we will look at history, and I will look at history in this video to show you that Australopithecine, can I say that again? Australopithecine. Australopithecine. I'm not going to edit this video, so I have to repeat it. They lived 5.5 million years ago. There was no one in Asia, no one in Europe, no one in America, no one in Australia, no one in Fiji, no one. The only ones who were there were the Africans. Then we're talking about the stages, okay? The stages of humanity. Now you're told that, the revolutionary people say that there was the monkey and it changed from stage to stage because of evolution. But that is not so. The Homo habilis would then be the next group. And who were they? Homo erectus migrated from Africa to Europe before the emergence of modern humans. Homo erectus, which lived roughly 1.8 million years ago, is the earliest hominid to have been discovered in Europe. 1.5 million years, Africans walked upright, moving from Arabia to India to Kenya and onto Australia to populate all the islands in between. They were the first to discover fire. The Homo sapien, oldest bones discovered in the Omo Valley, Ethiopia and Kenya, moved with their sheep, their cow, their language, their powerful mind, and populated Europe. First people to populate Europe were called the Grimaldi, the original man 40,000 years ago. One figure who is particularly important to the Afrocentrists is the Grimaldi man. That's the man, or that's the name given to the remain of two bodies unearthed in Italy at the start of the century. The bones were initially said to be of an African. The first people to populate England were called Beakers. First people to populate India, known as Dravidians. First people to populate Japan were black people known as Masaba, Negroes. Marambe. Uganda names similar to Japanese names is Takahara, Toyota, Nakamura. First Japanese were African people. The whole world belonged to the African man and woman. You spring from the people who populated the earth first and gave birth to everyone else. So in ancient times, it was our ancestors who populated the earth. In the scriptures, the Veda, the Perem Peru, the Nam Apali, the Papalis of Ani, the Quran, the Papyrus of Unefa, the Bible, the book of Jerosta, the Epic of Gilgamesh, all about African people. So I'm here to tell you that My mind cannot be a peanut when it can be a blossoming flower that opens and brings me to enlightenment. Until we walk away from the lies that have been told about our people, until we accept the fact that we are great people, until we ask the question, why would someone spend, or anyone spend hundreds of years trying to convince you that you are inferior? Why? We often ignore people who we think are not important. They're not relevant. We don't pay attention to them. That's the nature of man. And because some of you sort of like to be in bondage, and you love the control that is on you, and you don't want to change, you often try to come out and try to be disrespectful to people who are not even trying to be disrespectful to you, because your mind is so limited, and the average human being use a tiny fraction of their brain, because they're not spending time to open their mind, and to walk into a little avenue of truth. And because you can't handle it, or because you're too lazy to think, you want to confine others in that same place of darkness. When you come to ask me who wake me up out of my bed in the morning, and I'm saying to you, not you or the one you want me to say. When you try to, put your little words out there, and try to drop your little nasty word when I come on your live watching, because I was stupid enough to say hello, and try to make it seem like you know God. What do you know about God? You see, the way they portray our people, it's a disgrace that we are the only ones who continue to serve a God who denounce us, or the God of a people who always see us as inferior. Not I. You can, but not me. You can go down that rabbit hole, and you can stay in that space if it works for you. But that's not my portion. Until you can know and understand that most of the stuff that you're fed on these propaganda machines are meant to keep you down, to keep your levels to the place where you can't even think for yourself, where you can't see value in yourself or your other brethrens. We know that as a people, a lot of us are lost in transition. But sometimes I feel like, what's the point in talking to these ones? But we got the next generation. And so if one or two or three of us can come forward and say, listen, this is how it is, and we're not going to allow you to brainwash us. We're not going to allow you to continue to spread the lies. We're going to dismantle all these lies and disseminate truth. Our people are original people. Oh, we travel around the world. You can still see today. You have Jamaicans living in every corner of this globe. It's the nature of our people. It was always like that from the very beginning. And so the world is ours. The world is this landscape, and it belongs to us, and no one can tell us otherwise. And you should reject every negative thing that tell you about your people. Stay blessed, everyone.